question is an example of I don't really care about Bitcoin until I have to. In terms of what it is actually backed by, um, it is backed by what's called proof of work, um, and proof of work is essentially a decentralized network of computers where none of them control the network, and they all contribute electricity and spend vast amounts of electricity in order to act as the auditor in a way that requires no trust. So it's backed by energy, it's backed by electricity, and every single computer, they act as auditors and banks, but they all run the same code, and they all compare with each other that this person owns this money and that person transferred that money. And if anyone tries to rig the system, they have to actually try and control over 50% of the network. And it would cost them billions and billions and billions of dollars to try and take down the network. And then they'd have to try and control 50% of the power. So it's a complicated answer, unfortunately. But if I were to answer what the money in your bank is backed by, the answer would be equally and more complicated, but it has that trust. So Bitcoin works off trustlessness, um, and so it allows you to own your money. So it exists on your, you can store it on a hard drive on a special device. You control it, and so you can send that to anyone else that has a Bitcoin wallet address, and then the supply of it is always known into the future. On top of that, you get the crypto market, which are things that are very different to Bitcoin, but allow you to do lots of different things. It's a journey. And the way I've always tried to help people get started is it's not you suddenly put all your money into Bitcoin in crisis. It's what I did. And what I did is when I discovered Bitcoin in 2011, I figured out how to buy some. And then I put some on my phone. And then I figured out how to send it to somebody. And when I sent it to somebody, it made this bleep. And I realized I didn't call a bank. There was no central bank. I didn't have to create an account. I didn't have to do anything. And then I was like, what is this unconfirmed transaction thing? And then 10 minutes later, it said one person has confirmed it. And I was like, who confirmed it? And then I found out that there's all these miners that confirm and audit the transaction. And then I was like, well, how do I prove to someone that I sent it? And someone said, oh, you go to this website and every transaction is published. And I'm like, well, how do they know that it came from me? And they were like, well, they don't, but they can see the network, and then you message them and tell them it's from you. And I was like, oh, right. And how come they know my other transactions that I made afterwards? Oh, it's all public. And so you just start to learn bit by bit. And so what I've always said, the way to protect yourself is to think of different scenarios. And I've always talked about three scenarios, which is the US continues to continue its domination through the US dollar, and it decides to take away the freedom of everybody by launching a currency controlled by the central bank. As long as they do that, then the dollar will benefit, and all of the derivatives of the dollar, like the stock market and everything that comes from that. So I have a portfolio of my wealth that even if Bitcoin crashed, I'd still have that. I also prepare for a transition to a new empire, because that happens. And most people don't prepare for it because historically it happens every 100 years or so. And most people don't live 100 years, so they've never lived through a change of an empire, and they don't think it's possible to happen. And so that's where gold comes in. And gold is pretty difficult to own because of the safety of it. So you end up putting it at a custodian, and hopefully that custodian is well run, and you put it in a country like Switzerland or something like that. But there's still an element of trust. So then you look at the third part, which is where the Bitcoin part comes in for me. And what I do is I've managed my life where every month I earn fiat currency and I convert it in equal proportions and just ignore the price of all these things. And then every month I just send a wire across. It goes into my three buckets. and I start to manage it from there. Unfortunately, we live in a world right now where the simplicity of just trying to put your money at a bank means that you now need to be a portfolio and risk manager. And the whole purpose of, insurance schemes was so that you don't need to worry about money at a bank. But the reality is I've always tried to tell people that money at a bank is a speculation on the creditworthiness of that bank and the creditworthiness of the government that's insuring in it. And people need to hedge those risks, and the wealthy do. They can afford wealth managers to do that. But you know, everything you do is a speculation, and so there's no such thing as the illusion of safety. It's just a series of events that people need to be prepared for, so that when one of them goes wrong, they're ready. And so the biggest mistake I see people make is they say, "Put all your money in crypto." Well, that worked out very badly for a lot of people because they put it in one place. Or put all your money in a bank. Can you believe it? There was one of the bankruptcies where a company called BlockFi took everyone's Bitcoin, converted it to dollars, and put it at Silicon Valley Bank. And they converted it from Bitcoin to dollars at the bottom of the market. And it turned out that Bitcoin was the thing that they could have owned. And Silicon Valley Bank gave them exposure to whatever comes next from the FDIC, the Fed. And so, sorry, it's a really long answer, but unfortunately, there is no simple answer in finance. And people have to be prepared for different eventualities. And when things go really wrong is when people bet on one thing and it doesn't go the way that they prepared for it to be. And most people bet on the US system, the US banking system, and the US stock market, which may work out, but sometimes it doesn't. And at some point it won't. And so people need to be prepared for that.